Hey guys, what's up, Tags here? Today we're going to be here to talk about the F1 2017 season and where I think people might end up on the grid. We're going to go through all of the teams, all of the drivers, and see where I think they could possibly land at the end of this season. And of course, this is a whole interesting season because the whole rules have been revamped from last year, and we don't really know, from testing at least, who is on top. We have an idea about the top teams, but we don't know for sure. Anyway, you guys are going to see in the background some Project Cars gameplay, some Assetto Corsa gameplay, and some F1 2016 online gameplay. Let me know in the comment section down below which of the gameplays you see is actually most interesting to watch. That'd be pretty cool to see. I was going to record some R-Factor 2 as well, but for some reason it's really going weird. I can't get it to work. Anyway, let's get into 2017 talk and start off with Scuderia Ferrari. So they've kept the same driver lineup as last season, Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel. I think this I could be wrong, but I think this is Vettel's last year of his contract. It's definitely Raikkonen's last year of his contract. But who knows whether they're both going to be at Ferrari next season. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. Whether they've got to prove themselves, or they just don't like F1 anymore, or they just want to quit. So the Ferrari was launched not too long ago, the SF70H, and an interesting little car there. I mean, personally, it's one of my favourite liveries. I know, yes, it doesn't change much each year, the Ferrari, but something about it I just always love. It's just iconic, isn't it? So, as for the season and what happened in pre-season testing, I've got to say they looked pretty good, didn't they? They looked like they were going to be a substantial amount closer to Mercedes than they were last year. We don't know we know sort of Ferrari was sandbagging. We know that on Vettel's fastest time he did over the whole couple of race sessions, or test sessions I should say, he did back off around the final corner, so you could say there could be a few more attempts down the drain there, to be picked up there for the Ferrari team. And they were still that far ahead of quite a few of the other teams, including like Mercedes, who didn't look quite as on top. But then it's so hard. How much do you really read into pre-season testing? Generally nothing. So the Ferrari team, their aim for this season has got to be start to pick up wins. Their aim has got to be starting to battle for the championship. Even if they don't win it this year, a step closer to actually challenging for it is what's very important. Because currently, well, the last couple of seasons, I mean, when was the last time they won a race? Like, I suppose it was not too long ago they won last one race, but the last time they were sort of battling for a championship was 2012, and even then they didn't have a very good car. So they need to step it up. They need to step it up. Ferrari haven't seriously competed for a title in a very long time, and I think this year they could be there or thereabouts. I think a lot of the teams are expecting Ferrari are going to be right up there. And as for their drivers, I would say Vettel's probably got a slight advantage over Raikkonen this year, but Raikkonen did look incredibly quick in testing as well. Maybe he's got his mojo back. If he has, that'd be great for Formula 1. But nonetheless, let's move on to the next team, which is Force India. So they recently revealed their very strange and different livery this season, which is obviously pink. An interesting one. I don't know whether you guys like that or not. We can see some comments down below whether you like that livery or not. Personally, I'm not too sure what to think of it. I think it's nice to have loads of different bold colours on the grid, but I don't know, I think it can be used for a lot of good. As I did mention in my live stream yesterday, I think it would be awesome if they could use it for like some sort of breast cancer awareness or sort of livery for a couple of races a season. I think that'd be pretty awesome. Anyway, as for their drivers, Perez probably comes into the season as the #1 driver. Esteban Ocon, though, he didn't look like he completely outshone Verline last year, but he's in a much better car this season, supposedly. And I think Force India can definitely think about getting podiums again this year. They've got that Mercedes power unit, which only, except from Mercedes themselves, only Williams have. So it could be a pretty good chance for Force India to get some more podiums this season. I think they probably will get a couple here and there. I don't think they'll be, competing with the top 3 or 4 teams. But I think they'll be there or thereabouts. I think they'll have a chance to get a podium here and there. And I think for me, at least, Force India, they've generally just kept making that step forward. I don't know whether they're ever going to make the level of making race wins and going for championships, but it's great that pretty much every season they've progressed and actually managed to get more points or more podiums. So for me personally, I think that Force India can definitely aim for podiums this year. Sergio Perez always seems to sneak a couple here and there, which I guess he'll probably do again this season. But it's going to be an interesting one because I don't know how good that Mercedes power unit is this year in comparison to the Ferrari, because the Ferrari looked damn quick, didn't it, in the Barcelona test. So we'll see how it all plays out. I don't expect the Mercedes power unit to be so much ahead of the other ones this season, but we'll see, I guess, when it all comes around to the Australian Grand Prix, what is good and what is bad. Next up, we're going to talk about Haas. I'm actually just doing this in Wikipedia order. I don't know whether I said that already, but basically I want to make sure I don't miss out anyone, and I have done that in the past. So, the VF17 launched, and it had a nice little sort of subtle livery change. Not sort of grey and red, now back to black and red, which I think personally looks a little bit better. They have the Ferrari power unit again this year, and Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen racing for them. An interesting one picking up Magnussen, in my opinion. It's a strange one. He didn't have a very good last season, in my opinion. 2016 wasn't very good for Kevin Magnussen. I know their car is terrible, but he was outshone by Palmer in the second half of the season, I think, personally. So, I'm not sure how good Magnussen will do in comparison to Grosjean. I think Grosjean definitely sees himself as the #1 driver this year, but Magnussen hopefully will prove us all wrong, and hopefully will be battling with Grosjean many a time this season. For Haas this season, I think they've just got to try and get into the points more regularly. They were sort of a bit up and down last year. Grosjean was definitely the one that was picking up all of the points last season, but they need to get both the drivers in the points just a little bit more often. I think consistency is better than sort of outright speed for one Grand Prix this year for Haas, because they want to make that steady progress up the grid. And I think with Grosjean and Magnussen, they've got a good lineup there to get the good feedback on board. But for Haas, I can't see them breaking into the sort of top 5 or 6 teams. I think they'll just be outside a bit annoyingly for them, but I can see them getting into the points a little bit more regularly than last season. So overall, I think it could be an interesting season for Haas, but I can't personally see anything special happening. Before we move on to McLaren, guys, I need to quickly mention about the Assetto Corsa gameplay. I don't think I binded the pedals correctly, because basically every single time I lifted off the accelerator, it like slammed the brakes on, which was really strange. So apologies for that. Some of the gameplay it's just not quite as quick. I don't think I drive particularly badly, but it's just not quite as quick as it has been maybe in other ones you've seen on my channel. So let's move on to McLaren Honda. There's already talks for this season that they want to switch to Mercedes. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's like impossible that's going to happen, but maybe beyond 2017, Honda are going to get ditched, because if they don't step it up, they've had like 3 terrible seasons here, and they need to really, really step it up this season, in my opinion. Otherwise, I can definitely see them just, basically getting kicked out. McLaren don't have that much time. They haven't won a championship in a long time, and they're desperate for it, and they can't have Honda just sort of cruised along, basically. They just can't have that. So Van Dorn and Alonso, in my opinion, a really good driver lineup. I'm really excited to see how Van Dorn is actually going to perform this season. He did quite well in his one Grand Prix that he did last season around Bahrain. He got some points, which was good considering how bad that McLaren was last year. Alonso, obviously the steady guy. He knows where he is. He knows how quick he is. He's probably lost a few temps over a couple of years ago, but he's still an incredible driver. And at the end of the day, I don't think Alonso was ever about raw speed. He was always about ultra consistency. From what I remember, he was obviously very quick. Don't get me wrong, but I think he was quite a lot about being very consistent as well. And just the way he drives is just so good to watch. He's just such a skilled driver. And I think for McLaren Honda, they're going to struggle this year. Yes, they've got a nice livery. Doesn't mean much though, does it? But yeah, they've got a nice little change of livery. But I don't personally see them battling for podiums at all this year. I think that was personally the aim. When you look at like the 3 or 5 year plan, you thought that this year was the year that they're going to be battling for podiums. I mean, I highly doubt they're ultra sandbagging from what Alonso's come out and said. But yeah, I think McLaren are in for a shocking season this year. I mean, it's only been pre-season testing, I know. You shouldn't read too much into it, I know. But it's worrying signs. It is worrying signs from McLaren Honda there, because it's honestly looking quite bad about what will actually happen to them this season. I've got my fingers crossed. I want them to perform. I want them to do good, because I think it would be good for Formula 1 to have another power unit sort of up there. But I honestly feel they're going to struggle this season, and it's going to be very, very tough for McLaren Honda to be anywhere near the top 5 in any race, even Monaco. I think they're going to struggle. So let's move on to the current world champions, Mercedes. It's an interesting one. What do I expect to happen? I mean, it's a very tough one, because both their drivers are incredibly talented, Hamilton and Bottas. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the battle between those two, I think, personally, because we don't actually know how good the midfield drivers are, like Bottas in that Williams. Like, how good was he? I mean, he was outperforming Massa, but we just don't know how good was Massa, because we sort of lost that sort of idea, because when he was battling Alonso, he was quite far behind. So if Bottas comes into this team and actually starts to at least compete with Hamilton, I think we've got to have a lot more respect for a lot of the mid-table drivers who we thought maybe were a bit further away from the elite top. than they actually are. So I think this is going to be an interesting little season here. I personally don't see Bottas being as far away as a lot of people think that he will be from Hamilton, but we'll see as the season goes on. I think over the whole season Hamilton would probably beat him, but I think Bottas will pick up a couple of victories this season. I hope he does. I really hope he does. It'd be nice to see someone new being on the top step of the podium. But as for Mercedes in general this season, I think they're going to struggle to run away with it like they have done for the last 3 years. I definitely feel Ferrari especially are closer. I do think Red Bull are probably slightly sandbagging as well. I do think Ferrari, from what I've been seeing as well in sort of notes and tweets and all that sort of stuff, Autosport articles, from the looks of it, the Ferrari actually looks like a much nicer car to drive around, especially Catalonia. So maybe around those sort of tracks, the Ferrari is going to be the one to beat this year, but who knows? We assume probably the Mercedes power unit is going to be still the fastest in a straight line. We'll see how that all plays out, but for me, I'm just excited. I really am excited to see what Mercedes will do this year. Are they going to be the out-and-out favourites, or are we going to have finally a good championship battle? I've seen a couple of you guys commenting over the last couple of weeks. We just want a season like 2012 where like 8 people win and 3 or 4 people are going to win or have a chance of winning the championship. Personally, I'd love to see that as well. It's probably not going to happen, but I keep my fingers crossed. I hope that it's going to happen. But Mercedes, after all, is probably just going to dominate, so we'll just forget all this, right? So let's move on to Red Bull, who we were just sort of talking about there, possibly sandbagging. Oh, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I still see Ricciardo as one of the elite drivers in the sport. I still see him as like one of the top, possibly even top 3, up there with maybe like Hamilton and Alonso. I'm going to get loads of hate comments now, but I personally see him right up there as one of the best drivers on the grid, and I see Verstappen definitely getting there. The only thing for Verstappen, I think, is slightly the immaturity, basically. Like wheel-to-wheel combat sometimes goes a little bit over the top, which we saw in the 2016 season, which I think he'll sort of push that out to one side a little bit this year. We love to see his aggressiveness, we love to see that about him, but we do also want to slightly see a little, a bit more composed overtakes sometimes. So as for Red Bull, I think that they're going to have a season filled with podiums. I think they're going to be on the podium an awful lot this season, but for some reason I get this sense that they're not going to be as quick as Ferrari this year. I get this sense that they're not going to be world champions, and that's the sort of thing that come back to bite me when in a few, well, like half a year's time, they're battling for the championship and they eventually win it. So we'll see how it all plays out. I personally, I think I already mentioned this, but I see that the Mercedes probably being the fastest from Ferrari and Red Bull. I just can't distinguish the gaps. I can't distinguish the gaps from pre-season testing, but I do think Ferrari have made a substantial step forward. By the looks of it, they sort of started or stopped developing last year's car quite early on, because they're like, this car is just terrible, let's move on and do something a little bit different. So they did that, and they actually, I think, did a pretty good job. I mean, the Ferrari's looking pretty good. But anyway, we're talking about Red Bull, and I think overall their car looks good. As I said, I think it's going to have a load of podiums in it this year for them, but for some reason I get this little weird feeling that it's going to be Ferrari competing with Mercedes, not the likes of Red Bull, which it has been for the last couple of years. Right, so let's move on to Renault, because let's be honest, they had a pretty terrible last season. I mean, for a manufacturer, that's one of the worst seasons I've ever seen. Like, honestly terrible. I mean, yeah, it was not good whatsoever. I mean, let's keep our fingers crossed. I really want to see Renault do good. I want to see how they do this season with Palmer, with Hulkenberg. Will Hulkenberg finally get that podium? We've been talking like nearly 10 years about Hulkenberg getting this damn podium, which he's never got. I've got my fingers crossed. I really hope it does happen, because in my opinion, Hulkenberg's probably the best driver on the grid right now that doesn't have a podium to his name, and he's been on pole for goodness sake and he's somehow not got a podium. He's battled for race victories and he's still not got a podium. I think Renault are probably the dark horse this season. I think they've definitely got the best chance of the small teams to be the ones battling for podiums. I think a lot of us have just sort of forgot about them, because let's be honest, they were terrible last season and they weren't really distinguishable in terms of the results. I mean, they were basically 15th, 16th every single race, so it wasn't really, it wasn't really a battle ever worth watching really with the Renault involved last season, because eventually they were just always going to be battling for that sort of area of the area of the grid, which just generally isn't as exciting to watch. And this season, I definitely think they've got a chance to step it up. If the Renault power unit is one to be sort of dealt with this year, hopefully, if I've got my fingers crossed that it's a lot better. I want to just basically see a Formula 1 where the power unit just doesn't make a difference really. Whether you've got a Renault, whether you've got a Mercedes, whether you've got a Honda. Maybe that's a bit of a step too far. But I basically love just to see basically the car be the difference between the car and the driver, be the difference between the front and the back of the grid, really. That's just me personally, but we'll see how it all plays out. I don't really know what to expect from Renault this year. I would love to see them be more consistently in the points. I definitely see that. I mean, they didn't get that many points last year. I mean, Palmer got, was it a couple of points finishes, and Magnussen got a couple as well. But in general, they were just really bad, and they weren't scoring any sort of points. And I think this is the season where they got much more chance. Oh, look at that, nearly being a crash, lads. Alpine Rock getting through there. This is on PS4, by the way, guys. The gameplay is just not as good. I'm using a controller, and I'm terrible, so apologies. But anyway, let's get back to Renault. We'll just finish off with Renault, because I think their target this year has just got to be more consistently in the points. But maybe in 2 or 3 seasons' time, they'll legit be racing for race victories, which I think, personally, would be quite cool, because it'd be nice to see them back at the front. Oh, Sauber. I mean, what do we say about them? They've just had such a bad couple of years in Formula 1. I mean, this season they've got, I think, a nice little lineup, well, especially with, I think, Pascal Wehrlein coming into the team is going to be a big boost for them. Hopefully that'll be good. Marcus Ericsson obviously brings substantial funding, which is good for him. And he wasn't too bad last season. I mean, their car was just pretty bad. Like we were talking about with Renault, their car was just quite bad. So it's hard to distinguish how good the drivers were last year. But I think they can definitely make a little bit of a step forward this year. I think the tough thing is that now we've got Manor, or sorry, haven't got Manor. It's hard to distinguish who's going to be slowest. I think most of us assume it will be Sauber. But we'll see how it all plays out. But I think, well, I've got my fingers crossed that basically the slowest car can still win, you know, still score points at some point in the season. That's my hope for this year, at least. I want it just to be a closer grid in general from first to last. That's what I hope. Like, I hope it's not separated by more than like 2.5 seconds. I mean, generally it's separated by like 4 seconds. So I've got my fingers crossed. I hope it's going to happen. I know it's quite unlikely, but yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. And I think Sauber, they've got a good driver in there, and definitely in Pascal Wehrlein. And we'll see how it all plays out. He got some points for Man of this last year, so he should be scoring some points. Should be scoring some points for Sauber this year. At least you'd hope so. So let's move on to the next team on the grid here, Toro Rosso, who they did actually come out and say that they're probably going to be quite unlikely to be in qualifying 3 in the first race of the season in Australia, which is sort of mixed reports in a way, because they came out and said not too long ago, or I think it was at Science that said not too long ago, that they were quite likely going to be right up there, best of the rest. I mean, that's quite a bold statement. I mean, if you're looking, I assume best of the rest would mean not Red Bull, not Ferrari, not Mercedes. That's quite a big, bold statement when you've got people like Williams in there, you've got people like Renault who surely are going to be, as we've talked about there, surely going to be gaining some time. Look at that, lads, we just won a race, by the way. Absolute scenes. Anyway, yes, Toro Rosso, I think from what they didn't look too great from pre-season testing. From what I saw, they just didn't look that good. They didn't get, I mean, I saw quite a few days they were at the bottom of the amount of laps they've done, so I'm not sure whether they're just sandbagging in terms of that, but surely in practice you just want to get as many laps in as possible. So that's a really, really strange one there where they didn't get more laps on the board in pre-season testing. I mean, I could be wrong. I didn't follow pre-season testing that closely because I just didn't have the time to. Look at that, lovely turn 1 crash as per usual in F1 Online. But yeah, I didn't follow it too closely because I just didn't have the time to. But it didn't really look like there were that many problems for the Toro Rosso. They just didn't do many laps, which is really strange. So there could be an underlying problem with the car there. I hope that there isn't. I hope they are battling up the front of the midfield, because I think Kvyat deserves a bit of justice after last season. I've got my fingers crossed at least that they sort of does well this year, just to prove Helmut Marko wrong. So that's what I hope for Toro Rosso. I think, let's be honest, they've been quite consistently in the points for quite a few seasons now, but it's going to be hard for them to take that next step, because they can never be better than Red Bull. Let's be honest, they'll just stop them. Like, you've got to let us through that. So that's going to be how it ends. So yeah, unfortunately for Toro Rosso, I can't see them getting much further up the grid. But they did say they could be best of the rest, but I personally don't see it. So last team on the grid we've got to talk about here is Williams, who had a bit of a banterous pre-season testing with Lance Stroll crashing, was it 3 or 4 times? Like, let's be honest, a lot of us are envious that he's racing in Formula 1 this year. But let's be honest, it's maybe a couple of years too early. I mean, in his first season of Formula 3, I've been told this a lot, he was crashing into everyone, basically. He was crashing all the time. And he's crashed quite a bit so far this pre-season, and I've got my fingers crossed for him. I hope he does well. It's, you know, he has got the paid driver tag sort of slapped on him already. I think, to be honest, paid driver is generally used for someone you don't like instead of someone that's actually a paid driver, like Maldonado. I don't know, it's a tough one, because they were sort of paid drivers as well, but he obviously has some skill. There is some skill there. He won Formula 3 last year. He's worked his way. He deserves to have a chance, but is it too early to be in this good a team? Because I think Williams are going to be decent this year. I think they're going to be... like Toro were talking about being best of the rest. I think Williams are going to be that best of the rest team. Once again, like they have been for the last couple of years. But I just... it's going to be a tough one for someone like Stroll. I think he's going to struggle this year a little bit. I mean, he could turn it around. He could turn up at Australia and beat Massa by like miles, but I can't see it right now. I think Massa is the perfect mentor for him, though. I think this could be a really, really good season for him to learn, and Massa to give him so much feedback that he can sort of improve so much over the season, and maybe by the end of the year he will be faster than Massa, because Massa's told him all the tricks of the trade. I think that's really why Massa's been brought in. Partly so he can do all of the Martini sponsorship things that I think you have to be like over 25 to do. And also I think he's going to be just a great mentor, really. He's just a nice guy, isn't he, Felipe Massa? And he's sort of the guy that when you look at interviews and that sort of stuff, he looks like the guy you sort of just could talk to about anything. And I think Lance Stroll's going to really sort of gain that valuable experience this year. And I think he's going to learn a lot from Felipe Massa. And I think that's going to be the key for Stroll this year. For Massa, I hope he gets quite a few podiums this year. I'd love to see him round off his last season, which we assume is going to be his last season in Formula 1, with loads of podiums. I'd love to see it. I mean, more realistically, maybe 1 or 2 lucky ones is the way it's going to go. Maybe on the high-speed tracks where Williams, at least over the last couple of years, have been infamously quick. So we'll see. Maybe Monza, maybe Brazil. Wouldn't you love that, guys? Wouldn't you love Brazil podium for Massa? That'd be awesome. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Apologies for the corner cuts in this Monza race. I just realised how crap I am. Very is the word. Especially on PS4. So, that's been pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you for tuning into it. It's been like a bit of a mini... Well, it's just been like a mini podcast, really, hasn't it? A bit of a discussion about what I think is going to happen this season. I think it's going to be a good year. I mean, I love the look of the cars. I think we've got a very talented driver lineup this season from all of the grid. It's a good grid in terms of driver skill. Obviously, there are a couple of people here and there which maybe don't deserve to be there, but that's the same in every F1 season. So, I think we're on course for a very good year in F1, guys. What do you guys think in the comment section down below? You can leave me a couple of comments. This would be great if you could do. Who do you think will be the first winner of the season in Australia? Who do you think the world champion will be in drivers and constructors? And who do you think will be like the most surprising team, like Renault, for example? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you could remember to leave a like on the video, that'd be massively appreciated. And until next time, it's been Alex, and I'm out of here. Goodbye.